Hey guys! Today I want to talk with you about It Starts With Us, a contemporary romance novel by Colleen Hoover. This novel was published in 2022, just a few days ago to be more precise, and it's a sequel to a worldwide bestseller, It Ends With Us. As per usual, we will start this video with a short synopsis, and then proceed to the non-spoiler review and wrap this video up with the spoilers. If you haven't had a chance to read It Starts With Us yet, then do not worry, I will make sure to let you know when the spoilers begin. However, please keep in mind that this whole review will include spoilers from It Ends With Us. This novel starts almost exactly where the It Ends With Us left off. Right away, we learn that we are still experiencing the same day when Atlas and Lily have run into each other after not seeing one another for about a year and a half. And for once, the timing is on their side. For once, they're both single and willing to give this relationship that has been such a big part of their teenage life a shot. However, not everything is as simple as it seems from the first glance. Riley, Lily's ex-husband, is still a constant in her life, mostly because of their daughter, which they are trying to co-parent, and not surprisingly, he is not the biggest fan of Atlas. At the same time, Atlas is facing challenges of his own. His restaurants are being vandalized, and if that wasn't a headache enough, his mother calls him after a decade of silence. Alright, so let's start this non-spoiler review with a personal story of mine. I promise I'll be quick. As you might have already known, I am a big fan of It Ends With Us. A massive fan. I do not get tired of recommending this book to anyone I meet. And I currently work at a bookshop, so believe me when I say it, I tend to meet a lot of people. It Ends With Us was such a success. It has been translated to at least 20 languages, and over 1 million copies of it have been sold worldwide. So when I heard that a sequel for it is in the works, my first reaction was quite skeptical. Honestly, this sequel sounded more like a cash grab than a genuine attempt to continue the story. Mainly because I personally didn't feel like It Ends With Us needed a continuation. In my eyes, It Ends With Us already had a perfect ending. I followed Lily on this journey of heartbreak and self-discovery. I rooted for Riley, I hated Riley, and I ugly cried when these two finally agreed on divorce right after the birth of Emerson. I lived with this story in my head and my heart for weeks after reading it. I loved the open ending it had. I loved that we got just a glimpse of Lily's possible future with Atlas. I honestly didn't need anything more than that. It was one of those rare books where I felt that the ending was completely right. At the exact same time, I knew that I would read this new sequel. There was no question about it in my mind. So I bought It Starts With Us just hours after it came out and settled in to read, knowing very well that it has some big shoes to fill. So without any further ado, let me answer the questions I know a lot of people have on their minds, because I had the exact same ones on my mind before reading this novel as well. Is It Starts With Us better than It Ends With Us? No, not at all. Not by a long shot. Is this novel as good as It Ends With Us? Also not. It Ends With Us was a one-off. It was such a powerful story packaged in a rom-com style of a novel, which was so easy to read that even people who don't enjoy reading or don't enjoy reading romance still gave this book a shot, and more often than not ended up completely pulled into Lily's life. But do I think that It Starts With Us is worth your time? Yes. Especially if you were a fan of the story already, then absolutely, no doubt about it. I'm glad to say that my initial skepticism over this book was incorrect. Colleen Hoover handled her characters and the story with grace and compassion. To quote her own words, the author wanted to give us a more light-hearted story where Atlas and Lily could finally be happy. And in my eyes, she nailed it. This novel feels so much calmer, much more grounded, and much less dramatic compared to It Ends With Us, or honestly the majority of her books. I was so glad that Hoover didn't manufacture additional drama just to keep us on our toes. After everything Lily and Atlas have already been through, together and as individuals, them having additional twists and turns or stupid misunderstandings or temporary breakups caused by miscommunication wouldn't have made any sense. This novel felt too realistic for any of that, to be honest. More often than not, while reading romance novels, you need to suspend your disbelief, at least to an extent. Like, sure, there is no other solution for the main characters to get out of a messy situation but pretend that they're dating. There's only one hotel in the whole city, and of course it only has one room with one bed available in it. Or whatever other trope you can think of. And that's okay, I like tropes. Tropes are popular for a reason, and I do not mind most of the time suspending my disbelief if that results in an entertaining story. It Starts With Us, however, didn't feel fake or forced in the slightest. It felt sensible, down to earth. The characters, the events, the plot twists, all of it felt to me like I'm actually observing someone else's life. I can't attest to how other people felt like reading this novel, but for me personally, I felt like I'm catching up with old friends. With people who have been in my life for a while and who I care deeply about. So once again, no, I do not think that this sequel was necessary. It ends with us wrapped the book up perfectly, as I have mentioned before, and honestly I do not think that It Starts With Us will give a lot to the people who weren't already invested in Lily's story, as well as it will give nothing to those people who have not read It Ends With Us in the first place. Yet, if you have read the first part, then I still truly believe that you should pick up this one as well. It was interesting, it was beautiful, and it did provide me with closure I did not know I needed. If It Ends With Us ripped my heart out, this one soothed me. It put my mind at ease. And on this note, let's move to the spoiler review so we could talk a little more about the events of this novel. If you haven't read It Starts With Us yet, now it's a great time for you to click off this video. Alright, so let's start the spoiler review by talking about Atlas and Lily's separate storylines in this novel. When talking about It Starts With Us, Colleen Hoover mentioned it multiple times that this book is about Atlas. And to be honest, we did get quite a lot of him, and not solely because half of the book is written from his POV, but because we actually got to learn about his childhood, his family life. We even learned about some of the important events that we were already familiar with from before, from his perspective. And I was a fan of it all. I didn't even care that the author used some of the diary entries from the previous book, because honestly, reading them from Atlas' side was a pleasure. And because I also needed a little reminder on all those little things that mattered. Now, I'm not gonna pretend that I didn't assume that the title It Starts With Us is about Atlas and Lily, so the fact that Atlas has a 12-year-old brother who's basically repeating the life Atlas himself lived years ago did take me by surprise, to say the least. To add to that, I have to say that I enjoyed Josh immensely as a character. He did not only work very well as an individual addition to this book, but his existence helped to bring out the different side of Atlas as well. I can't stress it enough just how much I appreciated that Atlas got a very important personal storyline in this novel. I get that we already have quite a lot on our plate with him finding his way back to Lily and Lily having to deal with this whole Riley situation, but I love that I got to see Atlas shine as an individual and not just as this perfect and patient cheerleader for Lily. We have already seen him being that in It Ends With Us. We know he is awesome when it comes to everything related to Lily, so him instead getting the chance to save Josh, the way Atlas believed Lily saved him, was definitely one of the best parts of this whole book for me. In addition to that, I loved how Colleen showed us different family dynamics and explored both sides of the coin when it comes to dealing with toxic family members. When you read this novel, you understand so very well why Atlas wants to completely cut out Sutton from his life. It does feel like the most logical decision, the one that will bring him the most peace, the most happiness, and you can't blame him for it. Mother or not, Sutton does not deserve to be in Atlas' life. At the same time, you can't blame Alyssa for still standing by her brother. She is in no way blind towards his anger issues. She understands the severity of his actions, yet at the same time she knows that he is not a lost cause. She doesn't want to give up on him, at least not yet. And I have to say that I appreciated Alyssa in this book. I respected her ability to navigate the situation and still stay loyal to both Lily and Riley. It's definitely a bad place to be in, but all through the book she has been handling it with grace. When it comes to Lily's story in It Starts With Us, I loved how well this novel portrayed that leaving an abusive relationship is rarely as simple as starting with a clean slate, especially when third parties are involved. I know this might sound a little insensitive on my part, but I loved her insecurities when it came to starting a new relationship with Atlas. I loved her doubts on whether she did the right thing by divorcing Riley, or whether she's overreacted and the life would be easier on everyone if she just could find a way to forgive him and love him again. Now, I'm not saying that Lily needed to get back with Riley. Not at all. I just thought that her thoughts and indecisions felt so very human. I enjoyed Lily being this incredibly strong character who took herself out of an abusive situation, who is running a successful business and who is being an attentive mother, and yet at the same time acknowledging that even strong people, surrounded by people they can depend on, still can have doubts. To add to that, Lily's personal story has a lot to do with the difficulties that arise by being forced to continue to deal with a man that you loved, the man who hurt you, who physically and emotionally abused you, yet who still is a big part of your current life, and who will continue to be a part of it because you have a child together. You have this one incredibly important thing that will unite you for the rest of your lives, despite how much you might hate the idea of that. Just because you got yourself out of an abusive situation, it doesn't mean that everything now is just suddenly rainbows and butterflies. For me, Lily's journey in this book was not about finding her way back to Atlas. She always had a home with him. For me, this book is about her finding a way to set boundaries and to finally be able to really get her life back. Lastly, let's look a little at the relationship of Lily and Atlas. To rephrase the words Atlas said towards the end of the book, the moment I started the story, I knew, like I assume every single person who grabbed this book knew, that these two were very well aware from day one, from the moment of this accidental mini reunion in the street, that they will spend the rest of their lives together. There's no one Atlas loves more than Lily, and there's no one Lily holds in higher regard than Atlas. And while there was a little bit of drama in the shape of Riley and his jealousy, I appreciated how none of it really mattered in the grand scheme of things. I loved the way Lily dealt with Riley finding out she was seeing Atlas. I loved that she didn't lie. I liked that she stood her ground. At the same time, I loved how Atlas never really overstepped his boundaries when it came to all of this. He dealt with Riley with the utmost level of maturity, and he believed unwaveringly in Lily's ability to know what is the best way to handle the situation. Most of all, I appreciated that Riley or Josh or anyone else for that matter were not used as a temporary roadblock for Lily's and Atlas' relationship. All through the book, these two were open and honest with each other. They were supportive of one another, and they both were there to make each other's lives easier. Not for a single moment I had a doubt in my mind that these two are destined to be together. All that being said, I think what I appreciated the most story-wise in this novel is how well it portrayed that people do not change so fast or so easily. And sometimes they do not change at all. Riley didn't suddenly get the control of his anger issues just because his violent tendencies caused him to lose the people he cared the most about. The same way Sutton didn't suddenly become an attentive mother who joins her kids for weekly dinners or attends her son's basketball games just because she was given an opportunity to improve her ways. You can't count on people to change. You can't count on them to not hurt you the way they did it many times before. But you can choose where to draw the line. You can always choose just how much of your life, your happiness, your attention, and your love you're willing to give them. Overall, I'd say that this book itself was a love letter, a band-aid to us, the fans of Lily and Atlas, who experienced that massive heartbreak when reading It Ends With Us. Despite my own doubts, I like the idea that this book exists. I like the idea of getting a glimpse into Lily and Atlas being together and being truly happy. But that's just my opinion. What about yours?